spent 25 years working for a family business located here in Gaston County. I've served as an executive director of a local nonprofit, and 10 years ago I started a Medicare insurance business, which I still operate. Often I hear candidates proclaim that once elected they're going to do this, they're going to do that, but I know now that one commissioner can't accomplish anything without working towards compromise and a consensus with the other commissioners. I'm not a one-man show, it has to be a team, and we have a team that's working well together at the current time, as well as having the best relationship I've ever been part of with the county school board. We also are working diligently with public safety and economic growth, which we of course need to keep the tax burden off the shoulders of the property owner. I'm a conservative that understands that we must assist those in need, but also know we need to find ways to stop those robbing our system blind. I'm Tom Kigger, and I would ask you to consider me come November.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to the Chamber, the Realtors, and also to the Gaston Gazette. I am Chad Brown. I'm a lifelong resident of 46 years here in Gaston County. The last time I left during my tenure was to play professional baseball. It's the only stint I've had outside the county. Since being elected in 2010, our unemployment rate has dropped with the help of my colleagues from 12.3% to 4%, and we've added over 20,000 jobs in Gaston County during that time period. We also added $6,000 to the average wage consumed inside of Gaston County. Would like to ask you to consider me for your vote. I also want to let you know that Gaston County is a place near and dear to my heart. I want to make it a place to work, play, and stay. And all three of those go for our economic division, as well as our parks and recreation, and also make it safe enough to where you can call home. Thank you. I'm Chad Brown.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say thanks to everyone that put this event together. I think it's great for our community to get to know not only the candidates, but to get to know each other. My name is Tracy Philbeck. I'm 44 years old. I've lived in Gaston County my entire life. I went to the public school system here. I went to R.K. Hancock Elementary, Greer, Ashbrook, my 10th grade, and then finally graduated from North Gaston. After high school, I went to Gaston College and got a 2-year degree. After that, I went to Campbell University. I studied constitutional law and public policy. I came back to Gaston County and started a business. And ever since, I've been working hard, not only to improve myself, but my community. I'm married. My wife's name is Rebecca Philbeck. I have 2 children. And this is what you will get if you'll vote for me. Someone that knows what it means to work, which I have. Someone that knows what it means to run a business. Someone that knows what it means to represent their constituents. And whether you're a Democrat, Republican, black, white, gay, straight, no matter who you are, your religion or sexual orientation or political affiliation is not a prerequisite to my service. What you'll get from me is an ear that will listen to what you have and work hard to make sure that your needs are met in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
I'm not moving this to pick on Tracy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Caudill. I'm a first-time candidate, and I'm here today because I learned a lot from what I've done so far. I went through the Gardner Park, Holbrook, Ashbrook system, and then I went into the U.S. Army. And then when I came home, I went to Gastón College, and I got a degree in general education. Started a family. My daughter, Amanda, is in attendance with me tonight. And then after that, I went to the Art Institute of Charlotte, got a degree in applied science in culinary arts. Currently, I serve as the second vice chairman for the Gaston County Democratic Party, and I am a member of the Fair Housing Advisory Board for the City of Gastonia. All of these things combined make me feel that I am a candidate that can listen to you. I think that we do a lot of things right here. We do a lot of things that are really good for our community, but there's areas where as we grow, there's things that we can focus on to do even more even better. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring my experience, my service, my sense of service before self to Gaston County and give back to a county that's given so much to me. My name is Daniel Caldwell, and I'm asking for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Graham.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Graham, and I'm running for Gaston County Commissioner from the Riverview Township. I retired from the Department of Human Services 2 years ago after working there for 31 years. While I was there, I served as a job social worker, a Medicaid caseworker, and most recently, a daycare social worker. I have a unique understanding of the needs and challenges facing so many in our community. I do not consider myself to be a politician. I consider myself to be an advocate for the community. I am not running for myself. I'm running to represent all the residents of Gaston County. You won't find me voting to give myself lifetime health insurance. Everyone, excuse me. I have one agenda, and that is put my experience as a public servant and knowledge of county government to good use by taking action to help shape the future of Gaston County, to make it a community of opportunity, prosperity, where everyone feels valued and welcome. It will be an honor to serve as your Gaston County Commissioner, and I humbly ask for your support on November the 6th. Well, October 17th, because that's when early vote starts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Merrifield.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here, and thank you for sponsoring this forum for us tonight. My name is Diana Marenfield. I am running for the Gastonian position for the Gaston County Commissioners. I have always been active. I have been an active teenager straight on to my retirement. My involvements have been in special education. I spent 33 years in the police department as an emergency 911 dispatcher and supervisor. I have worked with many mayors and many city council members in my former life in New York City. I moved down here because I came down here before retiring and found that this was the appropriate home for me. I want to contribute to my community. I am still active. I was bored sitting home, and I chose to run for office because I have a lot to offer. I have always been an active person. I follow housing issues. I follow employment issues. I've actually worked on these throughout my career. So I want to give you the benefit of my experience and my knowledge, and also offer the fact that there are no women on this commission. There are very few women in our government, and I think it's time that we stand up and have our voices heard. And this is not as a Me Too issue, it is as the fact that we represent 52% of the population in this county, and I want to be that voice for you. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll now start with questions, and the first question we'll give to you, Ms. Marenfeld, so you can come back up. And the question is, would you support the use of county funds to support the city's Fuse District?
I would. It would be something that we're looking to generate revenue outside of our citizen tax dollars. We need to find other ways to compensate our tax monies coming into the state, and it would bring jobs, right? We're number one, we have issues in employment here, so it would be jobs. We have issues where we need to expand and make this the crown jewel and not constantly Charlotte or Hickory. Gastonia has a lot to offer. Gaston County has a lot to offer. So I think we can find a balance with using those tax dollars.
Repeat the question, please.
Would you support the use of county funds to support the city's Fuse District?
Yes, I would support it, and a couple of reasons why I would support it is because it would be great for our economy. It would be a great entertainment choice, and it would be good to revive that side of town. And I would also be willing to support businesses willing to locate on 321 South.
That's an excellent question. The answer is yes. I would have two prerequisites. As I mentioned before, I sit on the Fair Housing Advisory Board, and one of is what would happen to the rates for the properties around that area once Fuse was developed. Do we have a plan in place for those people who cannot afford those rate breaks? And it's something I would really like to take a look at and make sure that we have a plan in place for the people of that community and the effect, unintended or not, that would happen there. Also, I would love to see a graduated system put in place. Instead of trying to build the entire thing at once, maybe we do a corridor, another corridor, get investment in there, get more tax revenue going. But ultimately, yes, I think Fuse is a great thing. I supported it when they announced it. I still support it today. I know that it's somewhat controversial, but I think that anything that you can do to increase development, to increase jobs, to increase activities for the citizenry of Gastonia is a good thing and benefits the county as a whole.
I guess my answer to this question would be yes and no. No in the point of taxpayer dollars, because I think there's so many other needs in Gaston County when it comes to education, when it comes to business recruitment. We have a huge opioid crisis. There are a lot of dollars that's going to require. With that said, however, I do think with infrastructure, water and sewer, and things like that, I do think there's a way to partner and help create this project. But to use tax dollars on a project that was listed at one price, now it's coming back at another price, and it keeps going higher and higher and higher. I would just like to see that come together more, not only in its vision, but its financial outlook. At the end of the day, the county's responsibility, which is huge, is we need to make sure that our teachers are being adequately paid. We need to make sure our schools are adequately funded. We need to make sure, but we're getting ready to have to build a jail. This is going to cost millions of dollars because of overcrowding, a lot to do with the opioid epidemic. So it's not that I'm not willing to work on that area, but I think as a county commissioner, I'm willing to work with the city, but at the end of the day, we have certain priorities that are important to this community, and that's where I would support the tax dollars first. Thank you.
I'm a no. The reason I'm a no is not against the actual building up of the side of town that you're asking about. It's more along the lines of what Commissioner Philbeck talked about. We have many other needs for our tax dollars, not just the jail itself. We have a communication system that is inadequate. We need to make sure our police officers are safe, our citizens are safe when they call 911, that we can get adequate help to them. So we're trying diligently right now to raise that money and funding. This exorbitant amount of money that Commissioner Philbeck talked about, just to give you an example, Kannapolis just built one for $51 million, and it's under the scale of what they're talking about for the Fuse project. So this price keeps going up and keeps doubling, to where maybe a private partnership with Gastonia may be the best way to fund that and have someone buy in. Using the Grizzlies as a mainstay who's wanting to be there, have them buy into wanting to be a part of that because they're not right now. But I think if you look at it, the county has many other needs right now, the jail itself, the communications radio, but also, as Commissioner Philbeck talked about, our schools. We just put together a package with a bond package to make sure that our schools are adequately funded, but they have another $300 million on top of what we just gave them, so I would not be in favor of that right now.
Thank you. I have in the past voted to approve several non-traditional projects if it returned a profit to the taxpayer. One such example would be the Whitewater Center many years ago. We are continually seeing and reaping the benefits of that. Right now, though, with regards to the Fuse project as it stands, I support it in concept. But as you've heard from other speakers already, there's a lot of unknowns right now, so I can't say I would raise my hand to support millions of dollars going into a project that we just don't know yet. We just don't have the information.
Thank you. Please repeat if you'd like to stay up for the next question. Gaston County lags behind other counties that surround Mecklenburg in terms of growth. The current tax rate, which is higher than surrounding counties, is often mentioned for prospective new homeowners. What can be done to make our tax rate more competitive?
Well, over the years, we go back 25 years ago when we had the demise of the textile manufacturing, which was the backbone of our economy in this county. We went through some very, very hard times. Many folks were without jobs for years. Unemployment was high. During my tenure at that time, I spent 14 years on the DSS Board of Directors. We had 23% of our population were on some form of Medicaid then. It was tough. But to address the tax rate itself, one of our issues is our property values are very low. If you take a house, let's say you take a house in Kendrick Estates, near a golf course, a swim club, that house in Charlotte's going to be worth close to $1 million. Here it's worth $400,000. The folks in Mecklenburg, even though they have a lower tax rate, they come off the pocketbook for more money. They're paying 3 or 4 or 5 cents lower on the tax rate, but on double the amount of money. So things aren't always as they appear. There's rhymes and reasons that you have to get into, and it takes time to learn these things. But our board, I've been on there 20 years, and we've raised the tax rate 3 times. And the last time we had a tax rate was 3 or 4 years ago, and that was the first tax rate in 12 years. No other county in North Carolina went 10 years without a tax increase. So we're getting the biggest bang for the buck. Our budget has grown by tens of millions of dollars over the year with the same tax rate. So we're continuing to cut, and we are getting new tax revenue from all the development that we're having, and we're doing a good job. We need to do a better job with economic development.
Mr. Brennan?
Since I've been on the board since 2010, as Tom had told you, the tax rate has stayed flat. And one of the things I'm very proud of is that I have not been a part of any tax increase throughout the county and what we've been doing. With some of the mentions of what happened, and you heard in the first meeting tonight in the legislature, have been talked about, some of our opponents, is mainly increases. And some of those things that they were talking about doing earlier may funnel down to where we have to increase taxes. So we're not looking to do that. I think that's one of the board's initiatives that we have, is to keep our taxes low. With the reval coming in 19, after that, we probably would see some type of reduction to where we could interface that to try to make it continue to stay very low on what we consider, after we've been here for so long, of not raising taxes. But we do have a lot of needs. We have, like we talked, we have a new jail that's going to have to be built anytime. We're already doing some information to get ready for that. We're already having to get a communication system and variable other things that we've been working on. They don't just stop. They come at us head on, and we fought those to make sure that we keep our tax rate where it is and making sure that citizens of Gaston know where we stand. Thank you.
Repeat the question.
Sure. The current tax rate, which is higher than surrounding counties, is often mentioned for prospective new homeowners. What can be done to make our tax rate more competitive?
Okay, what can be done to make it more competitive? There's a couple things we need to look at. The actual way that we raise taxes is extremely antiquated. We fund our schools, economic development, Health and Human Services, the Sheriff's Office, the county police, gyms, the landfill, you name it, off of property tax. And the problem is, because it was such a downturn, not from 08, but actually from the textiles, instead of having a lot of companies here that would help in that burden, they no longer were here. So the property, 60% of the population who own property has to share the burden of the property tax. And I think there's a couple things that we can do. Number one, transportation is key. If you go down 85 every morning like I do, it is a mess. And until that is fixed, it's going to continue to be a inhibitor of growth in Gaston County. So I think number one is transportation. Number two, I do think that with the new school bonds that was passed, instead of all of that burden being put on a property tax, now it is a sales tax, a fair tax, which means even if you don't live in the county, you pay for that. And actually about 30% of that will come outside of residents that just come through Gaston County. What we're hoping to do is after we get the bonds and able to get these schools where we need to be, at that point we can actually reduce the tax rate because you won't need as much monies because now you have another way to help fund schools. I think another one is making sure that we get adequate housing that has values that can sustain themselves. Quickly, if you own a house, $220,000, from a county perspective, it doesn't produce enough taxes to keep it. So we need to get those values up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conley.
So I've gone across the county for 8 months now, telling people my ideas, the things that I think will help the community. And the question that always comes back to me is, that's great, how are you going to pay for it? And, the school bonds were great. They proved that, there's a segment of this population that is okay with an increase in taxes, if those taxes go to a benefit that they can get behind, right? And we can all get behind schools. So what I think, I read a report recently that the county manager said fiscal 2020, we're looking at a tax increase either way. What I think is really important is that we take a moment to look at where our taxpayer dollars are going now, an audit, if you will, to look at our contracts, to look at, where are the dollars going? How can we maximize where those dollars are going? Are there things that we can restructure so that we can utilize the dollars that we have now more efficiently? And then assess whether or not we need a tax increase. Another idea is to bring better paying jobs to the community. The more people that you have earning a living wage, is less people you have on 85, on 485, on Wilkinson, because they don't have to. They don't have to go to Charlotte to earn a decent living. They can stay right here in the community. And that means they're spending all their money in the community, which means they're spending more money that's going to the sales tax. And it's a revenue. And so, there's a lot that's complex, but there are things that are happening that we can just maximize, I think, a little bit better.
Thank you. Thank you. The current tax rate, which is higher than surrounding counties, is often mentioned for prospective new homeowners. What can be done to make our tax rate more competitive?
First of all, I want to bring up something. The ones on this side are saying how they want to save our taxpayers' dollars and do all these other things with. But when it was time for them to vote to give themselves health insurance, that wasn't an issue. I mean, they use your money, your tax dollars, to try to get themselves health insurance. So you pick and choose what you choose to spend our tax dollars on. With that being said, I think what the county tax rate right now is one of the lowest. But keep in mind that we are getting ready for a property reevaluation, which means that everybody's property is going to go up. And we're already paying about the taxes. I think what we should do is lower the tax rate. Once we get these new property revaluations, we can lower the tax rate a little bit to compensate, because people are going to be really upset when they get those tax bills in the mail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Taxes are a necessary evil that we all must deal with, right? We can't wait to grow up until we get our first paycheck and realize we're being taxed. One of the things that drew me down to Gastonia specifically in my search for a retirement location was the tax rate was much lower than I was used to paying. Okay, so that said, I need to explain how things work from my perspective in understanding taxes. We must make sure that we are collecting all our taxes and that nobody's let slide. We have experience across the country where people get away with paying certain taxes. We give them breaks. Maybe we need to review some of those policies. I also think that what we're doing is when we train professionals, like our police officers and our dispatchers and our nurses and anybody else that we train, we want them to stay in Gastonia, we want them to stay in Gaston County. What's happening is we're not competitive with the neighboring communities. They go to Hickory, they go to Lincolnton, they go elsewhere because their salaries are better. And what goes with them? Your money. They spend their money in those towns, and we're not getting that revenue in. So all I can say is that we need to build on things, look at alternatives, green energy technology. There are ways to save money without having to raise taxes, and we need to seriously think about them. There are many options out there, and one thing we have to also remember is you have to spend money to make money, and we can conserve all we want. I know how to pinch pennies better than most parents. Okay, I've done it. But the thing is, you can pinch pennies, but sometimes in order to get back on your investment, you have to invest properly. And so we will review it and look to see what we can do to make it better.
Stay there for the next question. Next question will go to you, ma'am. Would you consider studying the consolidation of the city and county police departments? Why or why not?
I would consider studying it. As to give an answer, yes or no, I can't determine that. I have spoken with members of both agencies. I think we should review what works best, find out what the best practices are, what can we share, and I think the determining factor would be the people who actually run those agencies and sit down with the community at large to see what would best serve us. And that's my answer to that. Thank you.
Ms. Gray?
Like Diana said, I would consider it, but unfortunately, I don't have enough information to say, I can't answer the second part of the question, because I really don't have enough information. So rather than say something that I don't know anything about, I'm just gonna say, yes, I would consider it, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mr. Brown?
So recently I did a citizen ride-along with the Gastonia Police Department, and I was just trying to get a handle on answering some questions, mostly for the Fair Housing Advisory Board, looking at the homeless population downtown, but also as a candidate to get better understanding of the community and get that perspective. And that question was actually proposed to me then during that ride-along, and I was given some interesting points, and I know it's something that's been talked about in certain circles for a while now, from what I understand. But ultimately, that is a very large decision, and I think that you would have to have probably something close to a ballot initiative to have an ultimate say on that. I don't know that that's a major change, and I don't know that you can put that kind of power on the board itself without having the citizenry give their input to it. I know that on one side of the argument is like we have two chiefs of police, so if you narrow the two and you have one chief of police, you pay less money. Sure, but is that going to protect our citizens properly? Or are you going to have the scope of protection that we have now? And those are good questions on both sides. So I think that, getting as much information as possible, getting enough people looking at that information as possible, and getting enough people weighing in on it will be ultimately where you come to a consensus on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would say any elected official that would not consider looking at any department throughout the county and seeing where we could save monies, create efficiencies, probably don't need to be in office. One of those offices that we were able to do is DSS and Health and Human Services. We were able to combine those and actually save, I think the first year, their director is back there, I may be off, but I think it was like $3.1 million the very first year by consolidating. Also, the county police is, in Gaston County, is a state statute. In order for that to change, our state legislators would have to change that. Also, when you're looking at consolidation and considering the whole spectrum of public safety, we have about 14 cities in our county, and it seems like everyone has $1 million police department. You know, I think we should also look at maybe combining municipalities under the county, kind of like what Charlotte did. And those are a lot of different areas that I think we need to look at. So your question, although it's direct, it's much broader, and I think a broader brush needs to go to that. But would I consider it? Anytime we can save taxpayer dollars, I would consider it. But I would also let you know there are other public safety issues throughout the county that we could look at saving monies as well. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, I would consider it. I think we could also, as Commissioner Philbeck talked about, we've talked about this extensively throughout our years as being an elected official. But I think we look back at the DSS merger with the health department. We look at Charmec with what they've done over there, what they have in the sheriff's office, and they kind of have the model of where the municipalities have been joined in with the county police to maybe have the duplication of service. I think that may be where they cross over the most. The sheriff does a great job of making sure the jails are safe, along with the court system. So it's a little different than what he does also with his initiative in law enforcement. He's doing a great job, the county's doing a great job. But I think where you see the duplication of services, maybe with the municipalities as far as, but I would consider it as your question.
Mr. Peters.
As it's been said, absolutely. We took two of our biggest gorillas in the county budget, DSS and the health department. We merged those. We've taken economic development or travel and tourism. We didn't actually merge them together, but we put them in the same building over by Belmont Abbey on 85, and they are utilizing one another's staff, cross-trained to some extent. So it just goes without saying, if there's an opportunity to consolidate and there's a payback, we have to do it. We're obligated to do it, and that's it. Appreciate it.
Mr. Peters, you can stay up here for the next question. Voters will have 4 measures on their ballot for the approval of malt beverages, fortified wine, ABC stores, and mixed beverages for unincorporated Gaston County. What is your stance on these measures?
Well, of course, the board unanimously, I think, well, I'm not sure. I shouldn't say that. I can't remember the vote. I voted to put that on the ballot, let the citizens make a decision. And as far as the economic impact to the county, we have an awful lot of small mom and pop types of businesses, stores, convenience stores, gas stations that sell milk and bread and things like that. But if somebody wants beer or wine, they're driving past. Take an example on 321 outside the city. There's a number of little grocers, little convenience stores. Those people drive by to go to the South Carolina border and purchase the beer and wine. It would bring a good deal of revenue back into the county, and it would help our local merchants. You know, we're not a dry county anymore, and if we've got the businesses out there, and actually they came to us over the years multiple times wanting us to do it, and we just decided to let you, the public, make the decision.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
I did vote to put it on the ballot. I was approached by several community members who have small businesses out in the unincorporated area. We do know that it's going to bring probably around over $500,000 worth of revenue, which anytime you can get a revenue stream inside of what we're doing, try to make those revenue streams go to a different purpose, whether we can put it toward an educational process or maybe something through the law enforcement practices, I think would be something we could look into. But I think when you have unfair abilities for a small business to be able to do the same as another business inside an incorporated area, which it may be, at least yards or miles away, it's sort of unfair to them. So we try to look at this as a number of years, so I did vote for that, and it's going to be on the ballot for the people to vote ultimately to what happens in that regard.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. I did not support, I think I was the only commissioner that did not support putting that on the ballot. And I'll tell you why. One, I have no issue if people want to drink. That's, their prerogative. And I do think if you want a drink or if you want to go to a place to eat in Gaston County, I think there's plenty of opportunities to do that. For me, it was more of conscience. I think we have a huge substance abuse issue in Gaston County, whether it's alcohol, whether it's opioids, or a whole lot of other issues. And I just don't know, when I look at a policy like this, or any policy, I think to myself, is it good? And what does it benefit the people? And I just really hadn't seen a lot of benefit of that. We spend millions upon millions of dollars through Health and Human Services or Department of Social Services, the Sheriff's Office, the County Police, dealing with a lot of addictive issues in Gaston County. And so for me, if I have a vote, I think we need more health food stands in some of the low poverty areas in Gaston County. Because here's what's going to happen. When they do these things, if you'll drive around, most of the time, they're not in the really best neighborhoods. And they just stick them out in these corners. And I just don't see how that's good for Gaston County. Again, it's not a judgment call, but just more for me. I think there's a lot of other issues that we need to deal with. And with addiction and opioids so high, the last thing I wanted to do was to support that. If the citizens do, as elected official, I'll gladly submit to that, understand that, and go forward. But as far as me, my vote was a no. Thank you.
Mr. Carter.
So yes, I do support, and for a lot of the reasons that Commissioner Brown stated, we are not a dry county. And if, store A has access, store B, C, D should have access as well. I'm actually surprised that it took as long as it did to get onto the ballot. I think it's something we probably should have looked at a while back, but it's here now, and I really hope that, whatever the vote comes down to be, that, the people of Gaston County feel like their voice was heard, and the Commissioner Board will move forward with that. One of the things that, I'm not throwing shots here, but one of the things that I thought was kind of odd was that, in a primary election, with no Democrats on the ticket, is where our school bonds wound up on the ballot. And then in a general election where turnout is vastly higher is where we're going to put alcohol sales. So I just it surprised me, made me kind of raise an eyebrow, but either way, it's here now. The vote was yes, it's on the ballot, the voice will be heard, and the board will move forward. And I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Green.
Could you repeat your question, please?
Sure, I'll go ahead and abbreviate a little bit. We have 4 measures on the ballot for the unincorporated Gaston County. What is your stance on these measures?
No, is my stance on it. And the reason is I think they were put on there to get people out to vote. I think the Republicans were a little bit afraid that we were, where they kept hearing about this blue wave. So I think that that's their way of putting something on the ballot to draw people to come out and vote. Like Dan said, why did they put it on for, for the primary when there were no Democrats on there? So I would say no.
Thank you. Ms. Mansell.
My answer is yes, I would support it for the same reason that was mentioned previous. It's an excellent revenue stream for small businesses. It is something that if you choose not to drink and you want to raise your children not to drink, that's your choice, you do in your own home, but there is a social condition that people enjoy being out and having drinks, and our hotel businesses are also losing revenue. But we would also get tax dollars from people coming out of town. So coming in, again, that would lessen our burden and bring a revenue stream that would be quite beneficial to the townships of Gaston County.
mentioned building a new county jail. Could you talk a bit about that option or any other way in which you'd like to handle jail overcrowding?
From what I understand, I think we do need that jail, unfortunately. It's something that we need because we're contracting out to another county. That's costing us money. It's taking, our tax dollars out of the county to pay somebody else to house our prisoners. But what we also need to do is to look at alternatives because a lot of the population has increased because of the opioid epidemic. We can push it under the rug and ignore it as much as we want, but it's out there. Everyday people become accidentally addicted to the product legally, so it's not like they're committing a crime. So we need to look at alternatives to constantly arresting somebody, putting them through the system, and filling up our jails, where what we should be doing is finding an alternative practice, get the Medicaid dollars that we're entitled to back into the state of North Carolina, where we can make treatment centers, we can have personnel to follow these people so they're not just like thrown out the door once they come out of jail. We put them in a treatment program that, say, 6 months to a year long. We can follow them, keep them on track, get them job support, we can train them, and in the process make them hopefully a productive adult back in our community rather than a recidive criminal. As to the other issues that we have, I think it's still a wise practice to have it here in our county and not save our dollars elsewhere.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm not gonna ask you this time. If the reason that our jails are overcrowded is because of the opioid epidemic or anything that's drug related, then I don't think there should be the need to build another jail. I think we need to address the issue that's causing our current jail to be overcrowded.
I'm going to go back to that citizen ride along that I did. We were in downtown. There was a woman, there was a call that she was selling drugs, and so the officer and I went, and I stayed in the car, of course. I'm a citizen, not a cop. But they searched her, they took her in. She was not selling drugs. She did not have drugs on her. She had paraphernalia and a non-lethal weapon, a pair of brass knuckles. And she was high. And she had the paraphernalia was a used syringe. And as we were taking her to jail, I was asking the officer, isn't there a better way? She goes to jail. She can't post bond. She's homeless. She doesn't have $50 to post that $500. What happens next? She sits there. She gets sick. The ambulance comes and picks her up. Takes her to the hospital, treat her like she's got the flu, take her back to jail. That's all on the taxpayer. And I just feel like there's a better way. In a time where we're proposing talking about building a bigger jail, Phoenix Counseling, which is the premier drug counseling agency in the county, has gone down to 2 days a week, from 5 to 3 to 2. And so, if we're going to be serious about addressing the opioid epidemic, which is very real and very near to my feelings, we have to do better. If we need a bigger jail, we need a bigger jail. We'll build a bigger jail. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying that can't be all we do. We can't just make room for more inmates. We have to have a better plan than that. So it's got to be more overarching than just a jail. We have to fund our treatment clinics better than we are. Thank you.
What's the question again, please?
You mentioned in an earlier answer building a new jail. Can you talk about whether that's the right option for the county or any other ways in which we should handle jail overcrowding?
Okay. I don't think you're going to have an option because the state has certain guidelines and regulations that dictate once it gets to certain capacity. So we're going to have to build a jail regardless because of capacity and state regulations. How to address overcrowding, we do some of that now through pre-release, deferred prosecution, where low-level folks that it's a misdemeanor or some low-level offense, instead of having them go to jail and taxpayers pay every bit of that. There's an ankle bracelet program that they're monitored and that allows those individuals out. I think that is one avenue. I think the best way, and you may find this a little odd, but this is me, I think we need to spend a lot of time on making sure we have strong families. I think we need to spend a lot of time on educating our children. I think we need to spend a lot of time on making sure they have good jobs to go to. We have a segment of society in Gaston County that's not going to go to get a 4-year degree. We need to work on vocational training. And you say, well, what in the world, how does that have to do with overcrowding? Because I do think when you put those things together, instead of just a Band-Aid through, we can put someone through this program to help them through this addiction or that, which I think we need to do. I think we need to start a lot earlier and make sure our families are strong. Strong families normally, not always, have strong children. A lot of times they can go to college, get an education, get a job, and stay out of trouble. I think that's something we need to look at. Thank you.
There's one major reason why I'll always vote right now with our overcrowded problem to build a new jail. That's the safety of every deputy in that facility. The overcrowded puts them at an unfair number when we have overcrowding as it is. So I will always vote to make sure the safety of our deputies is going to come before anything of trying to figure out whether or not how we can do it. As Commissioner Philbeck talked about, the education of our families, the values of our families is where we need to stick with everything that goes on. We need to make sure we're teaching our kids at a young age about what recidivism is when they're making these decisions, that we're not making the same mistakes at a young age, let alone when they get to adult age. But also our opioid crisis is become the deterrent. As you know, the county has sued the manufacturers and part of this lawsuit to try to take off that burden. So far we've had some success, but also with what the county's doing is trying to make sure that our public officers are in harm's way or not the ones being overridden by those type of addictions. And also in our jail, we want to make sure that the safety is first and foremost. Thank you.
Mr. Peter.
Absolutely, I agree that we have to expand the jail. We have already voted to approve the money to do what's called an infill. That'll give us some temporary space. But those of you that are here, I heard a number of you applaud when one of the speakers said no. Our sheriff is sitting in the back, and I know he'd be willing to talk to you about that issue if you want to when we finish up out here in the back room. The drug crisis, that's part of our jail overcrowding, but it's not nearly all of it. There's a lot of crime in Gaston County. People come into the county, commit crimes, get arrested. People that reside here commit crimes and get arrested. But Mr. Philbeck stated that we're under state statute and federal laws that require us. Back in the late 1990s, we were mandated to build a jail. I hated going in that old jail to visit former deputies and the sheriff. I hated going in that place. It was filthy. It was terrible. But that said, this drug crisis, since I have a little bit of time, it's not just the person that gets arrested for getting addicted to these things. I've had neck and back surgery, and I was prescribed boatloads of these things. And and I didn't have much counseling about it. I wasn't told about the risks going into it about 4 or 5 years ago. But you take a person that gets addicted, gets arrested, he's stealing, for example, to try to keep his habit going. He's a hardworking father, family man. He goes to jail. Next thing you know, his wife winds up divorcing him. The family doesn't have any money. They're out on the street. So this is something that it reaches so far out. And anybody that wants to try to help this community, anything you can do, please do it.
Thank you. This is our time for closing statements. Each candidate has 60 seconds. As we started to stage right, we're going to go ahead and start with Ms. Merrifield.
This is where I get to tell you about myself. I have been always a socially conscious person, and I feel that my lifetime experience at the police department and with my other work experiences, I've been a small business owner, I've raised children, I've raised pets, which is a big issue down here, I understand, also with our shelters. But I want to give a voice to people who don't know how to get there and talk. There are many people in our communities that always say, I don't know how to do this, I don't know who to talk to, how to get that information. I want to be that person. I also feel we are misrepresented because part of the population isn't seen at the commissioners. I want to give a face to the future of this county with a preparedness plan for growth and transition. And one of the ways to do that is improving our tourism. Let's get some grant writers in there so we can find ways to bring money in that we can utilize to offset some of our issues. I believe Gastón is ready for its next step in their growth, and I want to be that choice. And please give me the opportunity in November. My name is Diana Marable. Please vote for me.
Thank you. Ms. Graham, closing statement.
As you all can probably tell, I am not a politician. Hopefully, when I win, I can, like these gentlemen on this side, I can get up and talk about different stuff. But unfortunately, I don't know enough about everything that they know about, but hopefully I'll learn that maybe the next forum I can talk. But anyway, I hope that I've said something to you tonight that I have earned your vote for, and I hope that I've shown you that I'm in this for all of you guys and not just for a select few, whether you're the CEO or the janitor. Everybody needs to be respected and have a voice at the table.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer.
So I'd like to thank our hosts for putting this on for us tonight, Gazette, the Chamber, Gastón Day, the realtors, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and showing that you care enough about this vote, that you would educate yourself on it. As a veteran, that means a great deal to me. I hope that I've said some things to you tonight that gave you a perspective as to what I'm looking for, and you know, I'm just really appreciative to be in this role right now. I've learned so much about this community and about myself in the last 8 months. You know, Tracy and I have had multiple conversations, and I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to be a part of the process. So my name is Daniel Cotto. I'll be on your ballot, and I'm looking for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. I as well would like to thank those for putting this event on. Also, Mr. Caldell, I think if anything, both of us have showed civility in how we've interacted with each other, and something that I think is desperately needed in these times. Again, my name's Tracy Philbeck. I would like to earn your vote for you to consider me. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Unemployment went from 12% to right at 4% since I've been in office. Wages are up 20%. We finally got school bonds passed and we can actually do something with schools. Our economy's going good. People are happy with their jobs. I think there was just a survey the other day that people, for the first time in a long time, are excited about their job and where they're at. And I'm going to continue that and be a part of that. And last but not least, it is my pleasure to be a public servant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you again for having me tonight to this forum. Thank you to all the candidates on either side. This is what democracy is about. And it's about making sure that we go out here and we try to serve our communities through leadership. I think my last 4 years on this board have been my finest with my leadership. I've got to be chairman for the last 2 years. We've seen economic growth through about 20,000 jobs during that time. So we're really working hard to try to get things done. We want to make sure that we feel Gaston County is the place where we work, play, and stay. And I hope you'll consider me Chad Brown in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peters.
Once again, thank you for attending, everyone. I'll close by simply saying that it's been an honor and a privilege serving you over the years, and I will just ask for you to consider me once again. An old saying, the proof is in the pudding, and my proof and willingness to serve you is simple. First, I really enjoy doing it. I love getting involved with the folks and going to the folks that know more about an issue than I do and learning from them before I make a decision. Second, please look at my volunteer record to date. Besides serving in my elected position, if you add up my volunteer years of serving our community, it'll be somewhere close to 60 years cumulatively. 14 years on the Social Service Board, often as chairman and vice chairman. No easy task, I assure you. 10 years on the College Board, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, Caramount Board of Trustees, our Economic Development Council, the Council on Aging, County Parks and Recreation, Catherine's House, home on Sacred Heart Campus for women and women with children. I'm a driver for the Meals on Wheels program. I've represented on the State North Carolina Association of Commissioners. Please consider me again. Thank you.
Thank you.